Lesson 1 and 2, Minuet 2 by Johann Sebastian Bach, Melody from Learn Violin Fast, Book 2. So these are, again, very famous pieces written by Bach for his own kids and for his students. And in this book, again, you don't learn just the melody, but you're going to learn the melody as well as the bass. And again, if you can find someone that you can play with and you can switch parts, that'd be fantastic. And if you don't, or let's say they play an instrument like saxophone that it would be very difficult to figure out and transpose how to play in the same key, you can also just record yourself playing. If you are going to do that, I would recommend get an earpiece with a metronome. So that way, you have a steady beat. I would count off one measure for nothing. And so that way, and you're able to play with your own recording, right? And it'll be great if you record both melody and the bass. So that way you can follow along. So Minuet 2, this is a very famous one as well. So here's the main theme. Right? So the biggest thing here is you'll notice how a lot of the technique is exactly the same. It's just, again, a different order and pattern of notes. We start with the third finger on A, and then we cross the third finger on D. So again, I would try not to pick up the 3, your third finger, but roll it over. You might have to help with the hand. Then you do have to engage your pinky and cross strings. So that way you're not going from D string, E string, back to A string, and then back to E string again. There's a lot of up-ups, hooked bowing with staccato, but make sure they're not short, that you smoothly begin and end. There's still quarter notes. There are some lifts in here. There's E string, there are some accidentals. You do have low 2s in the A string, but you have a lot of low 2s, high 2s on D string, and then you go to low 2s on E string. You'll notice there's a lot of little scales. Right, so that's part of a G scale, and that's why we learn scales, so that when you play music, it all makes sense. Let's begin. This is the Minuet 2 melody, lesson 102. We're going to find the first note. You notice how I found the note with a low 2 as in per the key. 1, 2, 3. And then please note that at the end of the second line, so in measure 7, it's written as an eighth note followed by a tied eighth note to a half note. If you look at Bach's original score, it is just a dotted half note A, and then it has a grace note with a little slur. For just making sure that we know how to properly play this, I wrote it out as an eighth and then as a dotted half note. Or a half note with a tied eighth note, but just know that when you see actual music, it will be written as, and then it'll be a note that is supposed to be played as, which is what I did. I wrote it out, but just know that when you look at actual music, you're not going to see the A, you'll see an A with a little tiny little grace note. And we haven't really touched on grace notes yet, but in some music, you'll notice there's tiny little notes. They're literally maybe a tenth of the size, or maybe they're more than half the size. They're very small. They're called grace notes, and they're just an embellishment. They're not part of the actual musical theory of this, but they are there, and they are to be played, and usually we'll play them a little bit bottom, a little bit smoother and slower. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video to learn and play through the bass of Minuet 2.